Dave Dickerson.
There are only about 10 really beautiful days a year in Kansas City. And I was in danger of missing one of them because I was convinced that I had just ruined my life. I was 30 years old. I was a fundamentalist Christian. And I had just broken up with the only woman I had ever dated. Woman I'd been dating for 6 years. She was my fiance. We were going to get married. And I broke it off. And I didn't even know why I had done it. I could tell that she was convinced that it was because I was selfish. I wanted to do other things or something. And if she had actually accused me of this, I knew I could not prove her wrong. And so on this particular day, it was a beautiful day. I was walking in one of the only beautiful parts of Kansas City, outside the plaza. I was walking across a bridge with flowers blooming alongside, butterflies, fucking butterflies in the flowers. And I realized, as if from a distance, I should be appreciating this. But I was so depressed. I was so convinced I had just made the worst decision of my life. I would be crippled forever, and I might never feel a warm breeze again. So while this was happening, I was walking alongside a road, and this van pulled up and kind of slowed down beside me. Presumably it asked for directions or something. So I looked up. And this young woman in a bikini popped out of the window and said, "Hey, lover!" Whipped off her top. You flashed me. The van floored it, went around the corner. You could hear them laughing. And I was so stunned. All I could think to do was just blow them a kiss. And I thought, my God, what a nice world we live in. Because this is Kansas City. This shit is not supposed to happen here. And it stuck with me because I was a religious studies major. And I had learned in my sociology of religion class with Professor Greeley, there exists in the human heart a propensity to hope. And life and the pressures of life get to us and wear us down, and we require that hope to be restored. And usually we do this with friends, relatives, that kind of thing, hanging out. But every so often, something happens that overwhelms you and is so surprising and seems to light you from within and heal you in ways you had no idea even needed healing. And that is where religion starts. So, I was a virgin. I had literally never seen naked female breasts in real life except for my girlfriend. Religion. So this stayed with me. You know, it will. And 6 months later, I decided to go back to school. And I'm shopping around for places to go. And one of my options is Florida State University in Tallahassee, Florida. And I look down there and I think, there are women in bikinis there. I bet you some of them own vans. That is where I'm going, you know? That is where hope lives. So then I find myself in Tallahassee. I was raised, by the way, in the desert, Tucson, Arizona, and suddenly I was surrounded by this lush, fucking, like, dripping wet place all the time. Oh, my God. Kudzu will grow on anything. And surrounded by these, like, 18 to 22-year-old college girls wearing nothing, you know. And everywhere I went, I kept thinking, where is that woman in the van? You know, where would she be right now? And one day I was walking along campus and saw a bar with a sign that said, "Wet T-Shirt Contest, Friday." And I thought, probably, you know? But I have to say, so I decided to go. But it was really scary to me. Partly because, of course, if you were raised conservative, religious in any way, you know sex is evil, and it will take over your life. You know, it's not just you think about it and it's wrong, and it will never be sated, you know. And it was terrifying because I could feel that working inside me already. I knew I needed to see this wet T-shirt contest way more than made sense, you know. The Thursday before the show, I lost sleep. So, I guess what I pictured was that this wet T-shirt contest would be like that woman in the van, like times 20. You know, one by one, women would come up and go, "Hey, I'm full of life and vibrancy, and look, woo," you know, and it would all be a jolly fun time. What happened, however, is that I discovered if you are in a small town, and Tallahassee is not enormous, and you have a wet T-shirt contest every week, you're going to run out of people, volunteers. And they tended to pad the roles just in case with strippers. And so what should have been this kind of, you know, hey, look how young we are and fun and full of life turned out to be, I'm going to grind as if there's a pole right here. And so what should have been, you know, spontaneous and joyous and fun was this, you know, prefab, prepaid for, fake-titted bullshit. And it was depressing as hell. And it reminded me of the second thing I learned in my sociology of religion class, which is that after that religious experience, what happens is people try and recapture it. They go back and do the same thing. They sing the same songs. They do the same rituals in hopes of sort of regaining that initial experience, but it never happens. What you get instead is you find you've built a scaffold around the original experience that is empty. And that is exactly what I was experiencing. But the other thing, oh my God, the other thing, the guys at this show. See, okay, I was raised without porn. So I have always loved real women and real women's bodies. It never occurred to me to weigh in judgment. And these fucking assholes, they like, when non-stripper women, real women, would get on stage, they would yell shit. Like, you know, stop eating the donuts, get a boob job, you're ugly, that kind of thing. And it was so infuriating to me, because this was really important to me, and they were fucking up my shit. And I remember distinctly thinking, this is supposed to be a house of worship. You know? And you were turning it into a den of fucking idiocy. If I had had a whip of cords, I would have, you know. So I was, you know, pouring my heart out and about my depression, because the other thing is, like, you know, an experience like this leaves you feeling sullen and dirty and awful, and you're thinking, oh my God, baby Jesus was right about everything, you know. And so I was pouring my heart out to this bartender, and she said, Dave, I think you need to wait until spring break and then go to South Florida to see the real thing. Spring break. I take two of my friends, fellow grad students, just as clueless as I am. You know, like we literally like drive around going, where are the girls at? You know, and we're going on our spring break. And for me, this is the first spring break of my life. The first time I've ever done it really decently. Because I was raised a fundamentalist. I was a devout young man. And so for spring break, literally all through college, for spring break, I did missionary work in Mexico. Except for one year when we went to San Diego and handed out literature on the beach. So, you know, this is my chance. And I'm 30. You know, I'm not getting any younger. I'm not getting any less creepy. You know, I can just pass for 26 if I'm fucking lucky. So And if it screws up, I don't know what to do. So we drive south, way south. We go past the Fountain of Youth. You know, we go past St. Augustine. We go to Key West. And literally, we drive for so long. We come in at like 9, 10 o'clock at night, drop our stuff off at the hotel, and go, where's the wet T-shirt contest? It was 2 doors down at Rum Runners in Key West. And I go, and I am shaking, terrified, and anxious, you know. Partly because, of course, you know, I'm still terrified that sex is evil and it's going to take over my life and, you know, that kind of thing, and feeling guilty for even being here. What if someone notices? And also because I need this to work, and if it screws up, I don't know where to go. If you haven't been to a wet T-shirt contest, here's how it works. They get a bunch of volunteers, a bunch of women, one at a time, who are doused with water, and they prance around, and they have a vote, a kind of applause vote. And people who get a lot of applause are invited to come back, and people who don't. So I'm sitting front row, and in a courtyard of like 400 drunken college kids. And one of the early things that happens that strikes me as odd is instead of one woman, 3 women come on. They're like sorority girls, and they're obviously hammered already. And they just start making out with each other and grinding up against each other and sort of like, you know, rubbing it. And I think, boy, that's a little much for me. And it comes time to vote, and I'm like, yeah. And around me, everyone is like, yeah. I looked in shock. I thought for sure this 400 people, drunk college students, and this was a little much for them. We have aesthetic standards. And so that was a little shocking to me. Then the next thing that happened is this tiny, willowy white girl came on with her girlfriend, you know, lesbian girlfriend person, and her huge girlfriend was this enormous, overweight black woman. And I thought, oh God, here it comes. You know, this is where all the drunken assholes, you know, get their yayas out. But nothing happened. They were dancing, and they were clearly having the time of their lives. It was so infectious, and everyone applauded. They got more applause than the sorority girls. And I thought, good, keep it up. So we're down to the last 2 women. And at this point, both women are naked, because when you start with a T-shirt, where do you go? And I felt the feminist core in me was feeling guilty about this, but then I saw how much they were smiling, and I realized, oh, right. If you told me that if I walked on stage naked, 500 people would cheer, you wouldn't even have to pay me, you know? So I made peace with that, but what happened, these 2 women were basically equal. That was the problem. One would come out and dance, and we would applaud, and another one would come out and dance, and we would applaud, and nothing would happen. You know, we couldn't decide, and they went around 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, and I kept thinking, this is so unfair, because one of these women is going to get $200 for first prize, and one is going to get $50, and that's just a shame. I no sooner thought this than a guy jumped out of the crowd on a stage, and he and his friends had collected $60 to make up the difference, just a little, for the second place person. And I thought, that's it. It's like a big hand just checked it off the list. It was like, I'm done. I am no longer obsessed with this. I have seen the best. And it was funny, because it was nice. I thought this whole time I had been seeking that woman in the van. But what I was really looking for was proof that you could like sex and be a decent human being. That you could have titties and niceness. And so I went home just completely delighted. The next day, we were there for another day. My roommates wanted to go back because that was a great show. And I said, you know what? Philadelphia Story is on. I think I'll settle in. And I watched Philadelphia Story, and then I watched Lilies of the Field with Sidney Poitier helping out a bunch of nuns. And they came back hours later looking stricken. I said, how did it go? And all I heard, my one guy said, it wasn't as good. But I knew, because the thing they didn't teach me in school that I had learned from that evening was that when a miracle happens, you don't go back and revisit it, right? You let that butterfly land in your hand, and you do not clutch. You let it go, because you don't need to hold it. Because what I learned is that one really good night can make up for years of repression. Thank you.
Dave Dickerson.